And together we'll make sure everyone is in this country legally. So let's get out there and get them, recruits. Together we can make it happen.
South Park has once again reminded us why politicians fear it. In a recent bonus clip, the show's creators took aim at the head of the Department of Homeland Security, whose image they turned into a caricature on air, breaking the image of the tough official into pieces. This is not just a joke for the sake of a joke. The short clip, released separately from the regular episode, worked like a targeted strike, precise, vivid, and perfectly timed to the rhythm of social media. The clip was released at a time when the political noise was particularly loud, and within hours it spread across Twitter and TikTok. Parker and Stone have once again shown that they know how to time things right. There's no need to wait for a full episode. One expressive fragment is enough to start a wave of discussion. The author's main technique is not so much hyperbole as the careful stretching of a real story to the limit, where the event itself already contains a satirical charge. At its core is the sensational story of a puppy being shot, which the authors repackaged into an absurd educational monologue. Sometimes leadership means being tough. The twist itself is not new, but the combination of words and cartoon context turns it into a knife that cuts not at politics, but at the legend surrounding it. What was happening on the screen was both disgusting and funny, intentionally so. The animators did not hold back. In one frame, the face of the cartoon version of the official seemed to melt under the bright light, like wax, an image that was both repulsive and attractive at the same time. This visual technique intensifies the emotional attack. Laughter is mixed with a slight feeling of nausea, and it is this dissonance that makes the scene memorable. But the visual play is only a tool. The main power of the clip lies in how it combines with the text. The scriptwriters allowed the character to utter controversial phrases almost verbatim, and this created a mirror effect. The viewer sees a caricature, but hears familiar words that have been heard before in other contexts. At first, the reaction of the official and those around her was cautious. It seemed that the situation could be played out on social media, using the hype for their own agenda. However, the tone soon became sharper. A public attack followed, accusing the authors of sexism and an alleged attack on appearance. In the digital age, such a statement instantly becomes fuel for internet creativity. Outrage quickly turns into memes, remixes, and short videos that amplify the initial wave many times over. Every time a politician reacts with offense, algorithms reward them with a new joke. Irony turns reproach into content. The contrast with the reactions of other public figures was striking. Some, finding themselves at the epicenter of parody, respond with self-irony and thus adopt the same tone. The mockery ceases to be oppressive, turning into a sign that I'm in the game. Others choose the path of defense and indignation, and thus reinforce the impression of vulnerability. In this case, the second path was chosen. The attempt to impose an official note of protest only emphasized that the image of a tough leader was cracking at the seams. Instead of a demonstration of strength, we saw a man who solemnly defends his honor but loses control over his own public image. But this is not just the story of one politician. South Park has long ceased to be just a satirical series. It has become a factory of viral signs and symbols. Short clips, specially designed for social media, function like small artillery shells in cultural battles. One successful shot or phrase, and a personality is transformed into a meme that takes on a life of its own. Television parody now goes beyond the airwaves. It circulates, is modified, and becomes embedded in the collective memory faster than any official comments or reputation campaigns. Parallel to this, there are comical attempts by the bureaucracy to get in on the trend. One episode shows a parodic attempt by a federal agency to use quotes and stylistics from the show to befriend young people, and it looks pathetic and insincere. Attempts by institutions to imitate the language of meme culture without understanding the logic of the virus are doomed. Instead of increasing trust, such actions only exacerbate the comical perception and serve as additional material for satire. For a generation raised on irony, such attempts are immediately marked as false. And there is also a commercial logic at play here. For the show's creators, any emotional reaction from politicians means a manifold increase in reach. The more noise the official response generates, the longer the episode lives on, and the more discussion and views it gets. Protests and threats of lawsuits rarely dampen the effect. More often than not, they add fuel to the fire, turning a single attack into an endless stream of content. As a result, reputation is formed not by long pages of refutations, but in the form of a concise visual label that cannot be easily removed. South Park doesn't just joke around. It creates symbols that survive scandals and become permanently etched in the public consciousness. Politicians have no choice but to accept this or pay the price for their vulnerability. The creators of South Park have mastered the language of the short form. Not just a joke, but a concentrated message that spreads on its own. In the second part of this story, it is important to understand why a single clip can change not only someone's reputation, but also the behavior of entire institutions. The reason lies in a combination of three factors: the technological environment, the psychology of the audience, and the commercial model of the media product. The technological environment makes virality predictable. Algorithms prefer content that elicits a strong emotional response: laughter, disgust, anger, admiration. A short, shocking fragment is the ideal format for this. It is easily transferred from platform to platform, compressed into a GIF, turned into a quote, used in memes, and dramatically increases visibility. Since social networks reward engagement, a single episode spreads like wildfire, and then it can no longer be stopped by official press releases. Audience psychology adds a disruptive effect. For users, a meme is not just a joke. It is a way to label information, distribute social roles, and make decisions based on simplified images. When a politician is transformed into a meme, the public gets a short filter for evaluation. Instead of complex arguments, a concise sign remains. In an environment of information overload, people will rely on such symbols. It saves time and energy. For politicians, this is a tragedy. Lengthy explanations are lost in the face of a vivid symbol. The commercial model of the show completes the triangle. Provocation is the product, and attention is the currency. Each news scandal brings views, discussions, quotes in the press, subscribers on social media, and advertising revenue. It is profitable for authors to exacerbate the context, not because they are ruthless in themselves, but because the attention economy encourages radical solutions. This is not pure malice, but a systemic effect of platforms and media consumption rotation. This leads to the following reality. Institutional reactions are almost always delayed and appear clumsy. It is difficult for PR departments to reformat a viral story because they operate with long texts and official documents, while the audience operates with short images and quotes. Attempts to rewrite the game are often perceived as insincere. People see that the authorities are trying to catch up with a trend, but are doing so on their own terms, with bureaucratic templates and corporate slang. The result is yet another reason for irony and intensification of the initial attack. Legal threats and public scandals rarely work in this situation. A lawsuit against the creators of an entertainment project is usually perceived as an attempt to silence them and only inflates the attention. In addition, satire is protected more strongly in the legal system than direct accusations. So attempts to punish the authors rarely have the desired effect and more often confirm their narrative. For politicians, this is an unpleasant choice. To remain silent means to allow the memes to live on. To complain means to fuel the attention. Another important effect is the reworking of an image in the media. When a character becomes a symbol, they begin to live separately from the real details. People no longer remember the nuances of their biography or context. They remember the image. There are two ways to change it. Either consciously transform the image through long and consistent work to create new memes, which requires time and a creative approach, or learn to manage the reaction. Respond with self-irony and turn the attack into a resource. Those who choose the second path win. ridicule ceases to be a weapon and becomes a status symbol. Corporations that own platforms and studios, in turn, balance between fear of legal and political risks and the desire to preserve popular projects. Management usually gives creators considerable freedom as long as the show brings in the numbers and does not create serious legal problems. Public support from management is an important factor. When a studio openly defends its creators, attacks from politicians lose some of their power because they demonstrate that the economic value of the content outweighs political pressure. In this regard, South Park has become a factor that politicians have to take as seriously as journalistic investigations or analytics. But the difference is that satire works not through evidence, but through symbols. It does not refute, but remodels. That is why it sounds louder. Instead of a long text, there's one frame, one sound, one phrase that stays in your head. What's next for those who find themselves in the crosshairs? The strategy of playing their game, accepting the humor, responding, and regaining the initiative works better than aggressive retaliation. Another path is to attempt a long-term rebranding, backed up by actions and a new media strategy. But in both cases, it is important to understand that the digital life of a story does not obey the usual rules of reputation management. Politicians, partners, and advisors must adapt to the new reality. Either master the logic of the virus or accept that memes will decide for them. First, it is important to understand that the era of instant virality renders old reputation management recipes ineffective. Traditional moves, press releases, long interviews, official statements look like heavyweights in a sprint compared to a single successful visual fragment. Once an image has become a meme, it operates according to different laws. People see not arguments or facts, but a label, a short emotional signal. Hence the conclusion for political campaign teams. They need to work not only with facts, but also with the form of presentation. Creative responses that take into account the logic of meme culture, self-irony, quick reactions, format adaptation, are more likely to yield results than righteous anger or legal threats. Second, the story shows that institutions and bureaucracy should stop considering viral as a side effect and start perceiving it as part of the real communication environment. Agencies, departments, and government programs need a testing format that includes quick, creative formats led by people who respect the language of the audience. This does not mean switching to youth slang for the sake of fashion. It means the ability to find an honest and relevant form. Otherwise, attempts to get in on the trend will look fake and only increase ridicule. Third, from a legal standpoint, attempts to sue or issue official bans against satire are a risk that rarely pays off. Legal protection for satire is strong in most jurisdictions, and lawsuits are cumbersome and unpredictable. Furthermore, legal action often increases the reach of a story, turning a local episode into a national debate. The best approach is anticipation and transparency, where mistakes are acknowledged quickly and sincerely, and where there is a consistent strategic program to rebuild trust through actions, not just words. Fourth, the entertainment industry itself shows that content creators have new power, not through control over facts, but through their ability to shape metaphors. This is a power that cannot be dismissed as just jokes. The image they created became a turning point in the public narrative because it resonated with existing doubts and reinforced them. For politicians, this means that what is needed are not just counterarguments, but counter-symbols, new, enduring images that can replace memes. Creating such images requires time, creativity, and sincerity, and it is more expensive than reactive defense. Fifth, viewer psychology has changed. The small, reproducible fragment format sets thinking patterns. Memes and short videos are not just entertainment. They are a mechanism of cognitive economy. People reduce the complexity of information to recognizable labels. Politicians, brands, and institutions that do not accept this fact risk being recoded into simple labels that are difficult to get rid of later. Finally, there's a positive lesson for society. Satire and criticism are important elements of democracy. They help expose absurdity, exaggerate dangerous patterns of behavior, and and stimulate public debate. At the same time, public discussion must remain balanced. Turning complex biographies and political issues into endless jokes can deprive people of the opportunity for real dialogue and correction of mistakes. Here, the role of journalism, analytics, and civil society is to preserve context and prevent memes from completely replacing facts. What can be recommended to those who find themselves the target of such attacks? First and foremost, speed and honesty. A quick response, acknowledgement of mistakes, and consistent actions to repair one's image work better than loud accusations of injustice. Second, work strategically on your image. Create positive, multi-layered narratives that can compete with the short labels of memes. Third, prepare creative communications teams that understand the language of platforms and can quickly generate relevant content. To sum up, the story with the South Park clip is not just an anecdote about the famous cartoon series. It is a case study in communications, culture, and power in the age of social media. Symbols now work faster than arguments. Memes live longer than press releases, and the ability to create and manage images has become a key political skill. Politicians and institutions that learn to incorporate this logic into their strategy will have a better chance not only of surviving crises, but also of managing the agenda in a digital media environment.